Hello and welcome to Good Morning UK Have Your Say, a Force for Good's mid-morning show coming to you live from our nerve centre here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConaughey. And this is our 25th show in this series of programmes. Thank you so much to everybody who tunes in regularly, and welcome to the new viewers, which I know we're going to have this morning. And thanks very much to the people who are already sending us their greetings. Good morning to you, TC, always first on the button, and always good to see Debbie in as well. And to Adam, how are you this happy British Wednesday? And to Sandra as well. And good morning to Alan. Hope you are having a great day, Alan, here in the great United Kingdom. This is the programme where we're British. We love being part of the United Kingdom and we want to stay together. Good morning to Alan and also to Barry. Always nice to see Barry in as well. And to Richard, good morning, Richard and Tommy from Newcastle. Hope all is well with our fellow British citizens, says Tommy. And to James, good morning. And Tracy from Hull, how are you all in Scotland? Well, we're doing well. We're doing well considering the circumstances that we all must suffer under. Catherine, good morning to everyone. Catherine was a great guest last week. Really pleased to have Catherine on. Went down a storm. Everybody loved what she had to say, and we must get Catherine back on again. So thank you very much, Catherine, for your time last week. And Pauline, who's also been a guest on our show and hopefully will be a guest sometime soon as well. And good morning to Paul MacDonald. Hi, Paul. Well, do you know, and to Ruth as well. Good to see Ruth. Good morning to you, and to Ray from sunny Ranach. Ray, a great supporter of A Force for Good, does a lot of good work for us, does Ray. Thank you for everything that you do, Ray. And Adam's just pointing out, yes, England won 2-0 against Germany, which was a major victory for them, and they go through to the next round. So congratulations to them. And Dorothea, good morning, everybody. Absolutely. Well, as I say, this is our 25th show in the series, and we've just simply been working on it, doing it every Wednesday morning at 10:30 to 11:30. And as we always say, that shows the value of stick-to-it-iveness, because when you really stick to something and you commit to doing something, then it gets done. And it's wild, basically. It's wild, the amount of shares we've already got on this programme just now. We've got 59 shares. Now, please do, if you can, share. We always say this straight away at the beginning. If you can share this programme, please do so. Whether that's on Facebook or whether that's on YouTube. There's a share button on YouTube as well. And also whether it is on Twitter. If you can retweet this with a positive comment, then we will then be able to retweet your comment to 26,000 people. So that's a way for you to get a message out as well, is to retweet us with a positive comment, and we will retweet you to over 26,000 people, folks. Okay, now this morning we're going to talk about several things. The first thing that I want to talk about is the importance of recognising that Britain is a nation, because it's come under attack this week from various people. And let me just give you some backstory on that. Now, about 10 days ago or thereabouts, there was a school down in Bradford, and they did a wee song. Now, this song was organised by a fellow called, let me just get the name right, Cash Singh, who started up an organisation called One Britain, One Nation. Now, he's obviously an ethnic minority who was a former inspector with the West Yorkshire Police. And he founded also the British Indian Association. And he's very much a patriot for the United Kingdom. And we've been aware of the chap for 2 or 3 years now. And he does very good work in his community to help promote the idea of the United Kingdom. So he's a great guy all round. And a school in Bradford came up with a wee song to esteem Britain, and they called it the Strong Britain, Great Nation song. And it's we are Britain, and we have one dream, to unite all people in one great team. Now, you'd think that's a pretty harmless and, in fact, a very positive little stanza there. They went on, our nation survived through many storms and many wars. We've opened our doors and widened our island's shores. We celebrate our differences with love in our hearts, united forever, never apart. So quite actually a multicultural song there. And from a patriotically pro-British angle. Now, however, even that was not good enough for the Scottish National Party and all the dismal people who always talk Britain down. They didn't even like those lyrics, even though these lyrics are what you would call very inclusive in our modern society. And remember, this is a school in Bradford, okay? This is a school in Bradford, which is largely ethnic minority in the first place. So even ethnic minorities singing songs to praise Britain is not good enough for your Guardianistas, for your Scottish nationalists. And they went into a meltdown. You know, you'd think it had been something written by, well, they were trying to pretend it was some sort of extremist song. It's the furthest thing from that. The furthest thing from that you could possibly imagine. But what was interesting was even those lyrics were not good enough for the Scottish nationalists and for the Britain haters, which stretched the length and breadth of our United Kingdom, as we well know. And in fact, Cash Singh said he thought the response from some people was, quote, diabolical. And actually, that's quite a good word to describe the response of those people. We'll speak about that just a little bit more. Yes, they said it was like North Korea. Well, goodness sake, you know, I'll tell you what's like North Korea, if you want to get down to it. What's like North Korea is some of the stuff that gets taught in Scottish schools, right? We have, and Nicola Sturgeon's complaining about this song, right? She's complaining about this song. She's the last person who can complain about this song. She has a program that she runs in schools called the First Minister's Reading Challenge, okay? She brands this reading program with her own title and her own name and face on it, the First Minister's Reading Challenge. That's what I would call North Korean. And believe it or not, there's actually a Deputy First Minister's Maths Challenge, right? Deputy First Minister's Maths Challenge, where John Swinney brands arithmetic problems with his own name and face on them. It means it's like, what would be the sort of thing he would say? If you have 10 SNP MSPs pretending to be cabinet ministers on £94,821 a year, how many cabinet ministers on massive sinecures do you have? Okay, that's the sort of thing that John Swinney would be asking in his Deputy First Minister's Maths Challenge. Totally nonsense. So these people have got no right to try to complain about a nice wee patriotic song written by some ethnic minority primary school children in a Church of England school in Bradford. Just absurd. But as I say, it's always interesting to see the response of the Scottish nationalists. And of course, one thing that came out of it, because the organisation is called, and let me just get it correct, One Britain, One Nation, i.e. OBON, One Britain, One Nation. What the Scottish nationalists came up with, as they always do, is Britain's not a nation. It's 4 different nations. Oh, well, let's just talk about that, because that is central. That is central to understanding where the Scottish nationalists are coming from. They do not believe, as we do, that Britain, which we use as shorthand for the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, they will not accept that it's one nation, and that it's been forged as one nation since at least the Parliamentary Union of 1707, going back even to the Union of the Crowns in 1603, and as we always say, going back even further to our social and cultural unions through time. They will not accept that, because if they were to accept that, then they would understand why Unionists do not want to see that country broken up. So it's critical for them that they never ever accept that Britain is one nation. So the very name of that organisation, One Britain, One Nation, sent them into a conniption fit. Sent them into an absolute conniption fit. Adam says, England, Wales and Northern Ireland are the South Korea to Scotland's North Korea. Do you know what? You could be right. Well, as hang on, I've got a little things come up here. I have to get rid of this. Here we go. Yeah. Adam says, imagine a song called Scotland, One Nation. It'd be full of nationalist propaganda. Well, you know, we do actually have a song called Flower of Scotland, which is pretty nationalistic when you get down to it. I mean, talking about sending the English homeward to think again and stuff like that, referring to something that's like way back at the beginning of the 1300s. So we already have that sort of thing. So certainly, again, Scotland can't complain about those sorts of songs when we've got Flower of Scotland, which is a terrible dirge. Oh, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. Well, Richard says one thing the song didn't have was the hatred of the other that the Nats have. That's absolutely true. And Bill says that song should fall under her hate speech bill. Do you know what? It might, and it might even fall under some of the things that's going on in England at the moment as well. Throughout Britain, there's an organisation called Prevent. Now, this was set up by the British government. I need to check what government set it up, but its job is to try to stop extremism in schools. Now, it was set up initially to try to ensure that schools were not teaching various forms of Islamic teaching that might, in the view of the officers of this Prevent organisation, lead to extremism. However, they have, as they always do, they've widened their remit right out to everything. And I was very disturbed to see this report here in the Daily Telegraph last week. School history lessons may fuel extremism, warns counter-terrorism officers. Counter-terrorism officers, they're the people who work at this Prevent organisation. Now, what they're referring to there in school history lessons is basically the sort of way that A Force for Good teaches history, which is to have pride in our British history and to look at it objectively and to learn from it and things like that. That's what they are basically objecting to. They're they're opposed to teaching that, quote, sometimes blindly patriotic perspectives, where blindly patriotic perspectives might have been commonplace. Well, who teaches that anymore? I mean, we could actually do with some of that. They want, quote, a more realistic version of history. In other words, they're basically going to try to stop people teaching British history from a patriotic perspective. And they're going to audit the history programs, the history curriculums of the schools to ensure that there's teaching about the BLM movement, decolonization, and the slave trade. And so this is a very pernicious organization, this Prevent, and it might have been set up initially with various good intentions, but it's seriously widened its remit into being basically anti-British. And there's so many of these government quangos around who widen their remit as soon as they get established, and everybody is the target. So the school history lessons that you're looking at there are just simply, good old patriotic lessons that you would hope to learn in a British school. Terrible. So the point is, I bet you that Church of England primary school could be getting a visit from the Prevent officers saying, what are you teaching this far-right song for? Don't you realise that this could lead to English footballers not kneeling anymore? Oh, don't get me started on that as well. Adam says, these history lessons could risk the birth of the Scottish Republican Army if we're not careful. Let's hope not. Graham says there was one, I think, wasn't it? It's called the Scottish National Liberation Army. They were a bunch of fruitcakes if ever there was one. Oh man. Humza's hate crime, I don't know offhand when it comes in. I need to check that. Sandra says, we all need to start having more kids. I'm guilty. Teach your own kids the true history and the financial gain from the Union. Absolutely. Teach your children. It's great to be British. It's great to be British. Well, I just want to, talking about the fallout from this wee Church of England primary school song, and it was a massive fallout. There was this horrible letter in the Sunday Herald from a complete loonball that we've seen writing in many times, claiming that the Unionists are the flat earthers of their time. And he is, of course, very upset about this song, which is sweeping the land. And again, he believes that it's all linked to bad things. And here's his ending, which I want to read out to you. In order to counter this, there needs to be a conversational intolerance of Unionists. Unionism should be viewed the same way as those who advocate a flat earth, creationism, or those who think Elvis lives on the moon. Now, that is a real person writing a real letter into a real national newspaper and actually getting published, okay? Actually getting published by saying that what the way forward to do is to have conversational intolerance of Unionists. And if you don't think there's a lot of people who think like him in the Scottish nationalist ranks, then you are sadly mistaken, because we've been watching these guys for the best part of 20 years, and we know that a large number of them are off-the-wall loonies, off-the-wall loonies. And they get taken seriously by national newspapers, and they get their letters published. Well, maybe it's always been the case. Maybe it's always been the case that there's been complete loonballs, but just modern technology has allowed them to be heard. I sometimes think that. Yeah, he's not a Democrat, Richard, that's for sure. He's certainly not a Democrat. And then there was another person who came up here and said that again, this is Letters in the National. As we say, we read the letters in the National so that you don't have to. And we have detailed files, so we know all their arguments back to front. And sometimes we can read it and we can even say, a guy's not making the point that he wants to make, as well as I could have made his point for him. You know, we're at that stage now where we can definitely make the Scottish nationalist argument better than the Scottish nationalists can, which is a great position to be in. However, what this guy's trying to say is that Britain's not a nation because it's made up of 4 different nations. Well, of course we understand that, don't we? But we also understand that it is one nation, because in 1707 it started to come together and a new nation, an additional nation, was created. So that's what they don't understand. They think if there's always just been 4 nations, why can't these 4 nations break up? The reason they can't break up is because an additional nation was created through political union, and in that additional nation, everybody, the length and breadth of the United Kingdom, had a stake in the continuation of that nation, and continues to have a stake and continues to be invested in it today, going forward. So Scotland can't just randomly break away when there's people in England, Wales and Northern Ireland who don't want it to break away, who want to have a say over stopping it breaking away, who want to have a say in the continuation of the overall creation of the United Kingdom. Okay, so everybody has a stake here. If you're British, you're involved. That's why Scotland can't just go away and do its own thing any more than England could just break off without everybody saying, hello, what's going on here? Okay, we're all involved. We all have a stake as a consequence of the political and economic and social and cultural unions that have been built up over time, from official dates in 1707 and 1603, going right back into the midst of time when we began to come together socially and culturally on these islands and created one great nation called Britain, which is our shorthand for the United Kingdom. Yeah, see, that's so wrong. That's what they say, Adam, you're right. They say it's only for people in Scotland to talk about, and they want it only for people in Scotland to talk about and not for everybody else. But they're wrong on that. And very interested to see the British Parliament tentatively suggesting that people who identify as Scots in England should have a vote if there were to be another referendum on the matter. And that's an interesting point. I don't know how practical that would be, but what I do like is that they are announcing that as an idea that we can talk about. Even if it just winds up the gnats, it's worth floating out there. It shows that they're thinking proactively. They're thinking about how can we hold this wonderful United Kingdom together, and what other ways can we do so. So it's important that these sorts of ideas are floated, even if the practicality of them may represent difficulties. Graham there. This has been going on before Holyrood was opened. The Nats are radicals copying Sinn Féin tactics, and the Unionists always get the blame. They do follow Sinn Féin tactics very, very well. You know, I was struck at the 2014 election. The extent to which, when I started to really get into SNP history, the extent to which they'd been formulating theories on all of these things since the beginning of the 20th century, writing books and pamphlets and so on. And on our side, on the Unionist side, we had very little, because the Union just existed as a matter of fact, and everybody just accepted it, and most of us enjoyed it for that matter. But we didn't have to formulate theory about why it was a good thing or why it should hold together. But the Nats had been doing this for like 100 years. They'd been writing all this stuff, shocking in many ways, and especially so in the Republic of Ireland as well, where they had newspapers on these matters. Stephen says, the problem is nationalists do not understand democracy. They just follow blindly nationalism no matter what that would cost. Absolutely, Tommy. Richard says the devolved settlement has fueled the notion of 4 separate nations, turning it into a dog's breakfast. Before then, there was a sense that Scotland was a nation in a secondary sense to the United Kingdom. Yes, and indeed, all the parts of the United Kingdom were almost in a secondary sense, as you put it, to the bigger nation of Britain, which we always say is our shorthand for the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And people will say, well, that's not quite right semantically, but hey, we use it, and so deal with it, basically. That's the term we use to describe all of the United Kingdom, is Britain. Of course, if you're Sinn Féin or the SNP, you'll go into a conniption fit again if you hear somebody say that, as I just did. So I'm going to say it again. Britain is the shorthand that we use to describe the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So I'm just going to continue this. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a guest today, but I'm going to be the guest. So if anybody has a question that they would like to ask me specifically, maybe within reason, please, do send me in a question after 11 o'clock, and we will, I'll do my best to answer that. Now, yes, we're going to have a competition coming up, and it will be based upon this day in British history. And a couple of things on this auspicious day in British history, the 30th of June. So listen closely, and we'll ask you a question about this, whereupon you will get this tin of jelly beans if you win the competition. Now, the first thing that happened today was Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge was opened. Now, I found this picture of the opening ceremony of Tower Bridge. And there it is there. And what we like about Tower Bridge, it was opened on this day, the 30th of June 1894. 1894, opened by the Prince and Princess of Wales, who was the future King Edward VII and Queen Alexandra. And what we like about it is that its steel superstructure was built by a Glasgow company, was built by William Arrol of Dalmarnock, Glasgow. And this was the same man and the same company who built the Forth Rail Bridge 4 years earlier. Okay, so William Arrol of Glasgow and his men built not just the Forth Rail Bridge, but they also built Tower Bridge. And we'll put up a link to an article on that on our Facebook page later today. And over 11,000 tons of steel in there. The components were made in Dalmarnock in Glasgow, and they were shipped down, and he employed his men to build it. And many of them had also been working on the Forth Rail Bridge 4 years earlier. And at the peak of construction in summer 1893, there were 280 men and boys working on the steelwork, averaging 57 hours a week, Monday to Saturday. So it's wonderful that it there was built by a Glasgow company, and it was built by William Arrol. Now, William Arrol obviously understood. Let me get a picture of William Arrol up on screen. Good Scottish and British patriot was William Arrol, and that's him there. He definitely understood the value of the United Kingdom, because he went on to become the Liberal Unionist MP for South Ayrshire from 18 1895 to 1906, William Arrol, who built Tower Bridge and who built the Forth Rail Bridge from Glasgow, the Liberal Unionist MP for South Ayrshire. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. Also on this day, the first statutory police, the first police force in the United Kingdom to be established by statute, which is to say to be established by Parliament. The Act was passed in Westminster to establish the first police force in the United Kingdom, and that was on this day, the 30th of June in 1800. And what was the police force? It was the Glasgow police force. So on this day, 30th of June 1800, the Glasgow Police Act received royal assent, and that was the first police force in the United Kingdom to be established by statute. Now, there had been forms of police before then, before the British Parliament. There had been the High Constables of Edinburgh. They were established in 1611. There had been the Bow Street Runners, which were not established by statute, but were established by a judge at Bow Street Magistrates Court in London. But the first one in the United Kingdom, post 1707, to be established by statute was the Glasgow Police. And that statute continued them on until 1975, when the Glasgow Police were amalgamated into Strathclyde Police. So, the Metropolitan Police often get the credit for being the first police force. That's probably because they were based in London, where all the political action was, and they were established, of course, by Robert Peel. But that wasn't until 1829 the British Parliament established the Metropolitan Police Force. So actually the British Parliament established the Glasgow Police Force 29 years earlier. Just another little bow in the cap of Glasgow there. Is that an expression? Yeah, fantastic. So if anybody's got any questions, Adam thinks William Arrol looks like Abraham Lincoln. He sort of does a bit. A lot of these old guys looked kind of similar, didn't they? If anybody's got any questions specifically for me, please do fire them in, because we don't have a guest today, so it's basically ask me anything, okay? I'll be my own guest for the next 15 minutes. Aye. So our question, right? Our question is a fairly straightforward question based upon what I said there. If you have the answer to the question which I'm about to ask, then the first person with it will get this tin of jelly beans, okay? So if you have the answer to what I'm about to say, please send it into contact@aforceforgood.uk, and I'll announce the winner at the bottom of the hour. And the question is, on this day, the 30th of June in 1800, the British Parliament passed the first act to establish a police force in the United Kingdom. Okay, what city was that police force to be established in? Okay, what city has the honour of being having the first police force set up by British parliamentary statute? We'll announce the winner of that at the bottom of the hour. Dorothy asks us a question. Would AFFG consider visiting England, Wales or Northern Ireland to promote the Union? Yes, we would. In fact, we were in London back in 2017. We had a small demo outside the Houses of Parliament. There were 15 of us, and we used that time in November 2017 to launch London Town Unionists. Okay, so we have a wee group called London Town Unionists, but it's for people to also invite us maybe to somewhere, and you know, if possible, we might be able to go there and give a talk, or if necessary, have some sort of wee demo. So certainly we would consider it. Adam says, could you imagine a Force for Good as a party in Holyrood? No, we're very much a campaign group and think tank. And in that role, we have an important place in the political world. Could I imagine myself personally as an MSP? Possibly, yes. As a local councillor, yes. As an MP, yes. But then you need parties that would have you, and not everybody would want to have us, you know. So we do our own thing to a large extent, but we would certainly like to become a legislator in some way. But AFFG would not be the platform for it, because it's very much non-party political, appealing to people of all parties and none. But thanks for that question. Well, Catherine's saying there, same thing, could you front a unionist party for the next election? Well, unlikely on that regard. It's certainly not a major unionist party. And there's one or two smaller parties that are out there. And as some of you will know, I did stand at the Scottish election in Glasgow for a small party that I established many years ago called Independent Green Voice, which has nothing to do with my work at A Force for Good, but which is another project which I run, which is authentic ecology. It's not the nonsense of the Scottish Cabbage Party, which we have today. That's a good question, Bill. Do you believe there will be another indie ref in your lifetime? I can't say. I hope that there's not. I'm pretty sure that there will not be one between now and the next general election. I think that's what we can definitely say, that there won't be one between now and the next general election, because Boris Johnson has no reason to give Sturgeon a referendum, and she knows it. So there's not going to be one between now and 2024. So what that means is that A Force for Good has to really develop and create our publicity material and our publications, and build our outreach and really push the case for the United Kingdom. We're going to use this time to best effect to create as many positive things for the union as we possibly can. The next thing that we've got coming up is our 36-page policy magazine, and after that we want to create an A5 handbook to teach people how best to make the case for the United Kingdom, because that's so important. And so we have to prepare as if there's going to be one, and we are going to make the best use of the next 3 years to do that. And thank you to everybody who helps us in that regard. Sandra says, has AFFG ever stood outside Holyrood to show support for the union? Yes. On the 1st of February 2020, we were outside, and that was a very good day, actually, 1st of February 2020. It was the day after Brexit Day, and so the Scottish Nationalists were having a cry-in, basically, outside Holyrood, bemoaning the fact that Britain was independent, and just spreading doom and gloom. And so we went along. We had about 15 of our activists, and we totally roasted the Scottish nationalists across the road. And it was a fun event. It really was good. And the Scottish nationalists lined up in front of us with their banner, which said "Tory scum out," which didn't make any sense because we weren't representing any political party. But they stood there with their banner, and we just like ripped it from them for about an hour and a half. It was so good. It was so good, that event. So we've done that outside Holyrood, and we did a report outside Holyrood during lockdown to complain about the Hate Crime Act. That was just a couple of us doing that. Adam says, question, why is the opposition in Hollywood always shut down by the Scottish National Party? The Lib Dems and so on try to address issues that matter, and all the SNP can do is shut them down, plus blaming Westminster. Yeah, that's just the style. You do need to be quite strong in Holyrood. Holyrood has got a different style of debating from Westminster. I prefer the Westminster style, because in Westminster you can shout at people and shout them down, and you can be rude to them within reason. But at Holyrood, you've all got to sit there quietly while somebody makes a point, and as if you're in school or something like that. It's really sanitized. And so what then happens is that the teacher, which is basically Nicola Sturgeon, gets the final word on everything, while everybody else just has to sit there and nod away. And so the Holyrood style of debating is definitely fixed in such a way that it benefits the Scottish nationalists, and specifically the head Scottish nationalist, the head girl, Nicola Sturgeon. It definitely benefits her, because everybody else has to sit quietly while she rots off, basically. And so that's one of the reasons why she always gets away, because the actual style of debate in the chamber is prejudiced towards whoever is the First Minister. And Bill makes the point, could the lack of a referendum be what pushes nasty Nicola away from the First Minister role? The more her minions become irritated by no referendum, then she could get pushed away, couldn't she? But, I mean, I'm not looking forward to that day, because whoever replaces her will be just as bad. So it's not Sturgeon as such, it's the whole philosophy that needs to be countered. Stephen says the local council elections are in 2022, so are IGV standing. Stephen, watch this space. Sandra says, to get the numbers up on the demonstrations, is it possible to send individual invites to all members, either email or messenger? We essentially do that, Sandra. We essentially do that. If you are, as I know you are, if one is signed up to our email button, now we're going to put the link up there, which is the /support. If you're signed up to that, you will get notification of what's coming up. If you follow us on our social media channels, you will get notification of what's coming up. So people who stay in touch with us via these ways will know what we're doing and are welcome to come along. And very often we will send a specific invite to people. Well, that's quite a big question, Stephen. What are the next steps? The thing that's immediately on our radar at the moment is we're continuing this program every Wednesday. We're continuing to build social media outreach, including our new platform, TikTok, and we'll put up the link. We'll put up the address to TikTok on here as well. We've got over 500 followers on that, and that's a younger demographic. So we're going to be continuing on all of these social media platforms, which we run fairly well. We have a great team running Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and now TikTok. We're trying to produce a 36-page policy issue magazine, which will go to all the opinion formers in the Houses of Parliament and in Holyrood. And for that we need union supporters, that is people who will donate monthly to help, and we're looking for 50 of those. And that's we began that campaign a month ago, and we've got 12 new supporters, so we're still looking for another 38 in order to finance that particular magazine. And then the next thing as far as publications are concerned is an A5 manual to help people make the case for the United Kingdom. And we will always be watching as well to see what the Scottish Nationalists are doing, and if there is any physical campaign, physical counter demos that we can do. Of course, at the moment, that's all up in the air at the moment. The Nationalists had a very small demo at Bannockburn. We quite rightly decided that we wouldn't be bothering with that one. They do say that they've got one coming up in Stirling and one coming up in Edinburgh, and if that looks like it's going to be a major thing in September and October, then we'll certainly be there with our thin red line as well. So the thing is, just we're keeping going, we're keeping this going, and we're keeping producing materials which can help, including, for example, at the moment our wee book for the Union, which is only a £5 deliverable to anybody in the United Kingdom for postage included. Only a £5, and it's a good wee primer into where we stand on matters. But our magazine coming up is going to be excellent as well. Yeah, Sandra says, do you think Humza Yousaf will be the next First Minister, essentially? And yeah, I unfortunately think that's probably what's going to happen. Good there. Sandra signed up for the emails. She says, I don't know how I missed that. Thank you. Great, Sandra. Good. And please, everybody else there, do sign up for that email update. We do not bombard you with emails. We send one out a fortnight, every Friday. Every fortnight on a Friday, we send out our email update that tells you what we're doing, and it very often will tell you what's coming up as well, what we're intending to do. Yeah. Dorothea says, love that wee book. Good. Excellent. We'll screenshot that and we'll put that out. Do you have any new clothing range in the near future? New designs, that's a good idea. We have Teespring. Our Teespring store has our AFFG t-shirts and hoodies. We'll put up the link to that as well. And we do sell, and people like the hoodies and the t-shirts. Sometimes they just say a force for good, or they'll say Scottish and British, or Welsh and British, or English and British, or British Ulster is one that we have as well on our Teespring store. But thank you for that. If you've any ideas of designs that you think would be good, then do tell us. We're going to be speaking to our designer this week, so I'll think about one or two things. I've got one or two ideas as well for designs that might work, that could work. Okay, thank you for that thought. Richard says the wee book has gone to Andrew Neil and Neil British Oliver, among others. Excellent. Good. Sandra's heading back from Manchester. Well, talking about Manchester, it looks like the travel ban is being relaxed now from Manchester. It should never have occurred in the first place. Um, oh gosh, yeah. Don't get started on the travel ban, but it, as we've said before, it is essentially, it has no legal standing, and that point was not properly brought out by the British government, which is really irritating, because she can't be allowed to keep getting away with that sort of thing. Stephen says, that's a good one. Who is your inspiration, as you have so much energy? Well, thank you for saying that. There's so many people who have much more energy than me, and I'm always just amazed at some of the politicians who 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 are constantly, up at 6 in the morning talking to Good Morning Britain or something like that. That's probably something that I wouldn't want to do unless they were paying me awfully well for it, but I don't know if they even do that with these politicians. But it's a good question. I don't have one to say right now. If I can think of one in the next 2 or 3 minutes, I'll definitely tell you. Well, there you go, TC. My wee book for the Union is often in my pocket walking around London. That's great. That's great. And indeed, we have a wee book on tour challenge, that if you take your wee book and photograph it beside a well-known British icon, monument, statue, whatever, we'll use that picture and we'll put it up on our Facebook page in order to sell some more copies. Okay, I think you might have done that before, TC. I know at least one person in London who's done that, taken a picture of, the wee book beside the Churchill statue or something like that. That really helps. That really helps to get us on the map. And Tommy's pushing it again as well. Thank you. Great information in the wee book. A must-have. Also, I was unaware about William Arrow's involvement in Tower Bridge. Good information. I know, it's amazing information, stuff that you discover. And he definitely realised the value of being part of the United Kingdom. And in that regard, there was a really good article written in the Herald, 28th, that was Monday, how to spot voters who are about to be converted to yes. And one of the points, he basically put it in such a way as how to make voters support the United Kingdom. It's actually what it was about. And he was pointing out that if you feel that, firstly, if you're not feeling negative about Brexit, if you're feeling that it might work, then you may not be feeling quite as motivated to support Scottish separation. Secondly, if economically you're okay, then, and if you feel times are improving at the moment, then you're also more inclined to oppose separation. And the third point was how happy you are. If you're anxious, angry, depressed, full of anxiety about things, then according to a study that he quotes here, emotional problems are more likely to lead to a support for independence. That's interesting. That's an interesting angle. Put it another way, if you were fairly happy at the start of the pandemic and are unhappy now, you may have become more inclined to support independence. And the fourth point that he makes is essentially, where do you live and where have you lived? And he points out that if you've lived elsewhere in the United Kingdom, you're more likely to see the positives of the United Kingdom. So if you have a relative or friend who's gone off to uni or got a job somewhere else in the UK, they've probably become a little less inclined to vote yes to independence. And that reminds us of William Arrow, whose industry, of course, created things throughout the United Kingdom. He saw the value of the United Kingdom as a consequence of that, and indeed became the Liberal Unionist MP for South Ayrshire between 1895 and 1896. Let me get this right. I can't remember everything. Yeah, from 1895 to 1906. I was right, 11 years. Yeah, so that's what we say as well in the wee book, is like, if you have gone to college or university outside of Scotland and come back, you're going to be less inclined to support separation. Travel is the passport to British unity, as we actually say in here. The passport to British unity is travel, and it should be made as cheap and easy as possible. Extend the border railway from Edinburgh to Carlisle, reinstate the line between Stranraer and Dumfries to improve Northern Ireland's connection with the mainland, and reinstate the Troon to Belfast ferry. That was just 2 or 3 points that we made in our wee book. Fantastic little work, that. Absolutely. And what we'll also do is, I was talking earlier about the United Kingdom being one nation. If we haven't put that link up yet, let's put that link up just now in the article. We are a nation of unions, much more than we are a union of nations. Of course, we can be considered both, but we like to see ourselves largely as a nation of unions, not just a union of nations. We like to see ourselves as a nation of families, not just a family of nations. There we go. And Richard says, one Britain, one nation. Now let's see who won the prize. Excellent. Yes, we have a winner. We had several right answers there. Oops. That wasn't correct. I asked the question, on this day, 30th of June 1800, the first police force in the United Kingdom was established by statute. In what city was that police force established by the British Parliament? And the answer was Glasgow. And the winner is Alan Dawes. Congratulations, Alan. Congratulations to you for winning that. And so this tin of jelly beans will be winging its way to you. Now, if you haven't already, please send in via that email your mailing address so we can get this in the post to you today, Alan. Okay? Thank you. Good stuff. Congratulations, Alan Dawes. Debbie says, congrats, Alan. Stephen says, well done, Alan, at last. TC says, well done, Alan. Tommy says, well done, Alan. And what does Alan say? Alan says, woohoo. Great. Well, enjoy the sweeties. And thank you to everyone who entered the competition. There you go. Congrats, says Tommy. As does Catherine. As does Richard. Folks, please share and retweet this. Retweet with a positive comment, and we'll retweet that comment to 26,000 people. Follow us on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, TikTok's not for everybody, but if you like it, please do follow us on there. Let's get our message up on that particular platform. And it just remains for me to say, folks, at the end of this, Adam says congratulations in several different languages. As does Susan. Good to see you, Susan. it just remains for me to say, folks, we're going to be here next Wednesday at 10:30 for our 26th broadcast in the series. It's been a blast today. If you'd like to be a guest, contact us and we can see if we can arrange that. And please do tune in next week. Okay, just remains for me to say God bless the United Kingdom and God save the Queen. See you next week.